This is, I promise, a very short video to help you understand exactly what I mean when I say we're developing a line of reasoning. Very short video, something that we just discussed in class today, which is the 22nd of December. We're talking about starting our argument and in response to the prompt, what is overrated? Give me a concept, a place, or a role that is overrated. And Jay and Jimmy were, I'm going to steal from them. This is their thesis. They said that school in America is overrated, and I modified it a little bit. The practice of school or the system of school in America is overrated. Then they came up with this as their first piece of evidence. So the way that we structure schools, the way that the schedule is, the bell schedule. I mean, Jay was talking about how, students get up and they go from one class to another to another to another. And I said, okay, think about how can you say that in catch it, right? Catch the meaning in one phrase. So he said structure came out. So the way that we structure schools is overrated. That's the what. And remember, we need a why, right? So if you go back to this lovely slide that's so beautiful, evidence always means what and why. And we learned today that that why has to include a universal idea. So that it has to be a part of the why or pretty close to it. Otherwise, we are arguing things, we're not arguing ideas. And one of the other philosophies for argument, the tenets of argument would be we take positions and we take positions about ideas, not things. So what does that mean in practicality? It means that when you're testing your evidence, you have to make sure you have the what and the why. And the signal word for why is because. And then we have to make sure that that why is connected to a universal idea. So they had the structure of schools, right, is overrated because now we're going to get to the why and the universal idea. So the way that you do that is usually a verb phrase, an active verb phrase, same verbs that we were thinking about in our rhetorical analysis unit. So they were thinking, they took a negative stance, right? That's what you're taking with this essay because overrated is a negative term. So then that tells your brain that the verb phrases have to have a negative connotation. So we have leads to, promote something negative, hurts the blank of children. It was something about children. And they wound up with this phrase because it forces students to learn in isolation. So I like how this is a vivid verb phrase. It forces students to learn. Their universal idea is here, isolation, right? So now I can expect that whatever they develop in their reasoning, right, whatever they write to connect this evidence to the thesis, will have to deal with something about the structure of schools and the impact of isolation because of that structure. So I explained that we're really developing lines of reasoning. We're not developing just reasoning. So it's not going to look like what it looked like before when we wrote an essay, or maybe even, well, you got pretty close when we did the debate for fences. We developed more lines of reasoning. What I mean by that is that, like, I'm a very visual person, but this is like a very long line, right? It's too long. Can't really see it. But if I bring it in a different direction, right? So you want to think about how your line can be developed, right? Yes, you want a very strong line that isn't going to break. You don't want a dotted line. You want something that's going to be like this. But you might take a little twist and go back up here. And so that means that in this strange analogy of this cell phone cord, you want to think about what you can weave into your line of reasoning, right? So what can you put in to make it, think of like the fibers and you're making a thick line. What could you weave into your line of reasoning to make it stronger. And so we're going to weave in specific examples. So going back to what Jimmy and Jay were writing, they now need to, under the structure of schools, right, being overrated, forcing kids to learn in isolation, they need to provide some examples for that. So what does that look like? When have they experienced it? When have they seen it? How has their general knowledge supported this fact? They started talking about, the impact of uncomfortable environments on students' mental health, right? So that could fall into this line of reasoning because it forces students to learn in isolation, right? So one of the things that they may talk about as an example is that when students are forced to learn in isolation, they, their brain develops differently and they are removed from the social emotional supports that children need when they interact. Just made that up, but my logic is filling in the blanks, right? So that could be a piece that we weave into our line of reasoning for structure of schools, overrated, forcing students to learn by themselves, right? They're thinking of what's the impact of that? What does this look like when I walk into a school? What sort of things create this situation? I highly encourage you. I mean, I know you have this chart here, which technically is like what you're working off of. I just don't think, and next time I'm going to revise the chart because I'm learning from you, but I don't think this gets deep enough. Definitely not if compared to thinking about these prompts here, right? These prompts here force you to weave in stronger pieces or threads into that single line of reasoning, right? Because you're saying it's based on the result. The result can be social emotional health indicators stemming from students working by themselves or traveling from class to class without their friend group, right? I mean, I'm totally making this up, but your brain is creative and imaginative, and you can also begin to think of new things. These generators are hugely important. I highly encourage you to go to this document. This document is published in your Google Classroom right here. It is under the work we are doing now, and it is right here. Try this another way. Okay, it's right here. And you'll have to make a copy of it and work on it from your own. But the takeaway with this lesson is a line of reasoning is not just claim evidence reasoning. It begins with evidence, right? The evidence, as Jay and Jimmy had it, the evidence is the statement: the structure of schools is overrated because it forces students to learn in isolation. And that's also the what and the why together is the evidence. Now they're going to give us additional examples, right? So the examples, you can have like 2 or 3 examples that support this one statement of evidence. And that's what you want. So that's why it gets way deeper than thinking about analyzing literature in an essay, thinking about the claim, the evidence, and the reasoning. It's a deeper way of thinking. So you're actually strengthening this phone cord, right? Your line of reasoning, you're adding different layers to it so that it's stronger, leading from your evidence to your thesis. You can also think of alternative viewpoints. That's a rebuttal. So you're thinking of the opposite side and creating your own sense of ethos or credibility by naming that opposite side in your line of reasoning. But adding the separate examples into the piece of evidence is called backing. So you're backing up your evidence with smaller examples, right, that fit underneath your evidence. I hope that helps. That's what we talked about today. Even if you attend in class today, I hope that it helps. But please contact me over break if you need assistance with the work. Thank you.